Hi there, welcome to the Psychic Surgeons of Sirius. I was going to start a new channel dedicated to the Psychic Surgeons of Sirius, but today I woke up and kind of spookily enough, I don't feel very well. I haven't been feeling well for a couple of days now, and I'm getting a bit of a wheezy chest as well, which is a bit a bit worrying. Have I got COVID-19? I don't really fancy going to the local testing centre because that's probably where you're most likely to pick up COVID-19 if you didn't have it before. Stay away from the hospitals. That's my motto. Anyway, well, I don't suppose one should do that actually. I think you'll have to use your judgment on that one. But I decided I'm not going to start a new channel because I can't be bothered, and then I'd have to build up subscriptions from number of subscriptions from zero, and I'd have to start a new channel, and I'd only be allowed 10-minute videos. And you know how I like to go on a bit, and my introduction video is in fact just over 18 minutes long, and what is spiritual healing essentially. So this is really continuing the discussion about what is spiritual healing, and uh, so I'm just going to put these videos on the Psychic Surgeons of Sirius up on a different playlist, so that you can distinguish between the two lots of material on this one Grail Gnosticism channel. And of course, the Holy Grail, of course, is associated traditionally with spiritual healing. So there's a link there for a start, So it's not too bizarre, really. It's not like I'm, putting this up on my channel of covering tennis or something like that. Anyway, in the last what is spiritual healing video introduction to the Psychic Surgeons of Sirius, and there's supposed to be a couple of introduction videos necessary, I suppose, to explain more about the Psychic Surgeons of Sirius. I said that I thought spiritual healing was really, an idea of the idea that is a reconciliatory model. That what you're basically doing is healing the rift between spirit and matter, between the individual soul and the universal soul, if you want to call it like that, or individual soul and God, using a sort of Platonic model for there being God and there being an individual soul. So soul-body dualism, which isn't strictly speaking, in fact, Christian or Muslim or Judaic, but is precisely Neoplatonic in its origin. Although I think there's a lot of Neoplatonism crept into the religions of the book. Anyway, be that as it may, the point is that you've got God here, and you've got soul here, and between them, you've got this sort of morass, I suppose you might call it, of soma psyche. Soma psychic forces. So somic forces are to do with physical, bioenergetical forces, and psychic are sort of extensions of those forces, and perhaps sort of shadowing of the physical envelope we call the body, with various layers of psychic force around the body, and reaching up to quite high dimensions, in fact. And this morass of psychic soma energy, or might call it, or biomedical energy, it produces a sort of rift between God and soul. It is the big D, or the big distraction, which enables, which keeps you from realizing your connection with the divine. Now, the idea here is that if you imagine, a beach, and you've got that sort of layer of sand which is quite wet underneath, and when you walk on this layer of sand, you've got the sea there, and you've got this kind of wet sand, and then you've got the dry sand. And if you walk along the wet sand, you leave footprints, obviously. And where your foot falls, you sort of the weight of your body kind of pushes your foot into the wet sand, and you get footprints. Okay, so far, and it could, according to this metaphor, this wet sand here is the soul, and the physical foot, if you like, is the psychic, psychophysical morass that leaves an imprint on the soul. And if you like, these imprints that are left on the soul are the distracting forces that keep one from God realization, ostensibly. And so the idea really is that the healing takes place on the level of soul, literally spiritual healing, healing of the spirit, as it were, on the level. And so it takes place on the level of the soul. And you may say, well, how does that help my toothache or my gout or, my emotional difficulties or whatever, or COVID-19 or cancer cells or whatever? Well, it's a two-way street. So energy flows from soul to this morass of psychic somic energy, and back again. So it could be that an imprint is left on both ways. So the foot falling on the wet sand. You get your footprint on one hand, and then you get the wet sand sticking to the foot, the sweaty foot on the other. And basically, you've got to go and wash your feet, wash the sand off your feet on one hand. And then, of course, the tide will come in and wash away your footprints. So inevitably, there is a restoration, I suppose, of the purity of the wet sand, minus the footprints, and then you go home and wash the sand off your feet on the other. So at any rate, it is as if the walking across the wet sand had never happened, if you see what I mean. And this is a metaphor for the restoration, perhaps, of a reconciliation between spirit, between universal spirit or God and individual spirit or soul. And the idea is that the psychic surgeons of Sirius, one among many psychic modalities that restore or reconcile God and man, by which I also mean women as well, of course. The genus man, which is Homo sapiens sapiens, and the genus is man. So when we refer to man, we're also including women and everybody in that category, you see, by the way. So God and man are reconciled, as it says in the hymn, and the psychic surgeons of Sirius produce this reconciliation, which could have a ramification and implications on the physical and emotional level. I say could because I think the relationship between psyche and soma, and spirit and psyche and soma, is so complex in this particular dimension, physical world, that woe betide anybody who makes any claim of causality between the three elements and between, indeed, the intervening force of God on the whole thing, on the whole structure. But for example, let us, look at the thing about COVID-19, right? You got your COVID-19, which is, just a virus, simple little organism of DNA wrapped in a shell of some kind of bioenergetic, almost bioenergetic material, really. It's hardly a life form, and yet it is alive. It reproduces. So you've got COVID-19 here, and obviously there's physical implications on the immune system, and of course some people get it so badly that it's actually fatal. And then you've got the social dimension, you've got the cultural dimension, you've got there's many emotional dimension, psychological dimension, There are many dimensions to COVID-19, and there are many different contradictions arising from its perception, and the perception of COVID-19 itself is part of the complex of COVID-19. So you're not just looking at a bunch of cells. You're looking at COVID-19 as a virus within human society, within the individual, within the perceptions of collective and individual. And all this sort of forms a COVID-19 body-mind complex, as one might call it, as one might say. And it's this complex that basically is making the detrimental footprint on the otherwise pristine wet sand of soul. Or the perception of soul, I suppose one might call it. So the perception of soul is normally pristine. And then all these distractions come along, such as COVID-19 and cancer and gout and toothache and pain generally and emotional pain or whatever, what have you. And they make this imprint, a negative imprint, on the perception of soul, which again, as I said, causes a rift between the soul and God in terms of ordinary perception. So the idea is the psychic surgeons of Sirius restore the perception of God, the perception of soul, despite everything that's going on, despite the complex that is, for example, COVID-19, which is causing a rift, I suppose, between God and man. One might almost say, think of people, the partners in a long-term relationship. Of course, they're in love with each other, but economic considerations and family considerations. You've got two souls and star-crossed lovers. I mean, everything under the sun is coming between them, trying to split you up, trying to break you up from your partner, trying to make you fall out of love with your partner. And it's all the stresses and strains and on every different level that's coming between you. And they're powerful forces. And so the question is, which is more powerful, power, or the powerful forces of this world, or love? And the idea also here is then that if we look at love as an acronym, which is something which I will cover in a later video because it can't make this too long. If you look at the acronym LOVE, we've got love. The L is latitude, O is organization, V is vision, and E is energy. So the various these are four areas, if you like, of concern. And by latitude, I mean flexibility. I mean the ability to transition from one state to another, which of course causes a lot of stress and strain on the body-mind complex. It's the transitions of life that prove problematic. And so latitude is when you give yourself latitude. You either let go or you let yourself off the hook, and so it's got to do with self-esteem and self-love. So latitude is what the sort of technical term for being able to withstand the transitions of life and the changes that happen during one's life. And then O is for organization. This is to do with focus. It's to do with being organized in your thinking, focused rather than dispersed and distracted and distorted. And V is vision. The vision of the Holy Spirit, the vision of the Holy Grail comes in here. Increased vision, the vision takes you out of yourself and you see the bigger picture, or you see the biggest picture of all, which is the spiritual picture. And then energy is the energy of the vital, the joie de vie, a sort of biochemical vitality. And balance within the body is restored, and some of the blockages that come between you and the perception of God are removed. And all these four areas the psychic surgeons of Sirius are concerned with. And I have a whole bunch of pictorial representations of the various psychic surgeons of Sirius. And of course, as I was thinking about this morning, I woke up today determined to make this video and to begin my psychic surgeons of Sirius journey with you on this particular channel. It occurred to me, of course, that the psychic surgeons of Sirius are angels, really. Another word for angels. We're talking about angelic forces here. The forces of preservation, well, forces that transcend preservation, creation, and destruction, and re-establish and reconcile spirit with matter, reconcile individual spirit with universal spirit, as one might say. And so basically, you could say that the study of the psychic surgeons of Sirius is really the study of another name for angels, really. An angel just means, it means in Hebrew guardian, but in the psychic surgeons of Sirius sense, they are also messengers. They also increase vitality. They increase vision. They increase organization, and they increase what I call latitude, which is flexibility and your ability to weather the various changes and transitions of life. And of death, for that matter. They are bringers of hope. They are bringers of messages. They are bringers of vitality, resolution, organization, focus, things like that, positivity generally. There are various ways of attuning yourself to these psychic surgeons and various ways of becoming aware of their occult or hidden effects, as one might say. That's basically all I want to say on this, because I don't want to get too analytical with the psychic surgeons of Sirius. We are talking about a lot of intuition at work here, and a sort of letting go of one's analytical mind, and going to a deep, silent space, which is beyond analysis and beyond intellectual thought, and allowing intuition to be communicated. In other words, thoughts are communicated through the medium of the internet from me to you, but from my intuition to your intuition. So as of yet, I have no idea how I'm going to really present each of the psychic surgeons of Sirius. But I do have their pictorial forms, and I do have various ways which you can become aware of them. One might call them ritualistic ways, ways involving radionics and visualization and the transfer of energy to water, for example, various things which we will cover in this particular part of the Grail Gnosticism channel. I hope that you won't mind kind of mixing of traditions here. Like we talk about Grail tradition, and then suddenly we're going off into the heavens. To Sirius, but I was determined to make this video because it is, of course, the festival of Sirius today, July the 23rd, and of the inundation of the Nile, for example, and I suppose when Sirius, the star, is at its brightest, and the energies of Sirius are at their most powerful. So I thought it was a fitting day to begin this new project and begin this new mission to the mission to the Gentiles, as it were. I hope you don't mind this kind of intrusion of a different tradition into the Grail Gnostic tradition. But ultimately, I think it's basically all saying the same thing, just in a different way. I've always liked the idea of Sirius. I got it from Stockhausen. His bird beings are Sirius. I've always been very keen, very attracted to the bird beings of Sirius by Stockhausen, and also by the healing modality of the psychic surgeons of Sirius. And of course, we will cover the whole business of psychic surgery, as it were, and the various physical, mental, and spiritual planes that the Syrian surgeons work on. There's a lot of ground to cover, and so I don't want to go on too much now. I need to save my brass until the end, let's put it musically, and not give away too much in the introduction. So thank you very much for watching, and bye for now.